Hello, and welcome to the Sparta Group podcast. We aim to provide you with up-to-date interviews and debate with opinion leaders in the health, well-being, rehabilitation and mental health space, from our studio or from conferences.
Hello, my name is Steve Bennett from Sparta. Welcome to the latest in our question and answer sessions with Dr. Sandy Mann, Senior Psychology Lecturer at the University of Central Lancashire, expert workplace consultant, author of several books on psychology and human potential, who runs her own private clinic and is clinical psychology lead for Sparta Health. Hello again, Sandy.
Hello there, Steve. Another session.
Another fascinating set of answers, I've no doubt, to some layman's questions.
Some fascinating questions.
These are questions that really, I'm knocking on a bit now. I hit the title of sexagenarian a few weeks ago, which means that I'm between 60 and 69. So I hit my 60th birthday. And,
really? Honestly, I don't. You're doing something right then.
Short paper round, I think. But, one of the things that reaching certain milestones in your life does, I think, is it makes you reflect back on various emotions that you've had and various experiences that you've had, and determining whether they were positive or negative and whether you want to repeat them or whether you don't. And one of this subject that I want to talk about today, if we may, is a subject that I think is such a transformative emotion, and that's the emotion of appreciation. It's had a particularly positive effect on me, on helping me to retain a happy mental state and physiological state through a fair bit of my fair share of adversity. Appreciation, as I understand it, is an energy. It can help us reduce stress. It can help us improve our general health and sense of well-being. I mean, I did some studies years ago that led to a research article that I wrote, a book that I wrote called The Truth Will Set You Free. It was all about happiness and how we've arrived at where we are now and how we get to where we want to be. And part of that was actually studying the brain. And I contacted a professor in America who was a brain expert who taught neuroscientists how the brain operated. But the key things that I drew from that was how our emotions are released from the brain and they can assist our general health and sense of well-being. But appreciation is not just an emotion. It's not just something that we can use to assist ourselves. It's quite a broad subject. Perhaps the question I'm going to throw out is an open-ended one, Sandy, about your experience of appreciation in the world of professional psychology and how useful you found it to be.
Yeah, as you've been talking, as I say, we don't rehearse these and I have no idea what you're going to be talking about. But as you're talking, I'm finding myself thinking, as I always do with when you ask me things, I'm always thinking, you always stimulate thought in me. But I keep going back to this thought, which is, I'm going to throw this one back at you, Steve, if that's all right. What makes you think appreciation is an emotion? Is an emotion? What is it about that gives you the idea that it's an emotion?
I tend to think of emotions as a mental state, whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. And I tend to think of appreciation. It's also a verb. It's also a doing word. It's something that we do. And when we do it, because I've felt personally, and the people that I've spoken to about appreciation seem to share this view quite unanimously, that when we experience appreciation, we feel good. We feel good about appreciating, nature, appreciating the love of our family, the appreciation of the confidence that our employers show in us or that our investors show in us as business owners. It's the appreciation of other human beings in so many different ways. And nature, as we've said, when you're out walking and you can smell various fragrances and you can hear birds twittering, you can see the wonders of nature in front of you. All of these things add up to a warm feeling. I tend to translate that feeling into an emotion. I call it an emotion. I might be wrong. I might be totally wrong.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just curious. I mean, emotions are, a peculiar thing. We can't see them. We define them as things that have a feeling component, and that's why I was asking you, and you mentioned the feeling component, that warm feeling. So it has a feeling component, some sort of cognitive labeling. So we're labeling as appreciation. So yeah, it might well be an emotion. I'm not saying it isn't. I was just curious as to why you thought it was an emotion, because it's not something that a lot of people would immediately say, oh, that's an emotion. In fact, I teach emotions. Emotions is my specialist area. And one of the questions I often ask students is, how many emotions can you label, can you name in a minute, reel them off? And nobody ever says appreciation. That's why you got me thinking. And I'm thinking, is it an emotion? Is it not? I don't know the answer. I mean, I don't think there is an answer, but I'm very satisfied with your answer, and I'm happy to accept that it is an emotion. How is it different? Because again, you stimulate thought in me, and I'm thinking, how is it different from gratitude? And is gratitude also an emotion? Are they different emotions, or are they on the same spectrum? Do you have any thoughts on that? I'm putting it all back to you now, Steve.
Yeah, well, you forgive me for the layman's responses that might come out of this, but
no, but that's what's really valuable, in that you're not constrained by the theory, because before you said all this, my first thought was, really, hang on, is appreciation really an emotion? And now that you've explained it from a genuine
I wrote a chapter on appreciation. I call it the power of appreciation rather than the emotion of appreciation. I call it, in the second section of my book, it was all about the powers that I felt could transform life. So the first section of the book was all about, how did I get here?
Yeah.
How did I arrive at this state? And the second section is, how can I get from where I am now to where I want to be? And it was using powers of the mind, powers of the brain, powers of thought, powers of awareness, powers of acceptance, powers of appreciation. And when I wrote about appreciation, I studied it, and there's a superb book all about appreciation written by a doctor, which I read, and I devoured it. And it was all about how appreciation contains the word gratitude. It's almost like appreciation is the overarching principle, but gratitude is there as one of the elements of appreciation. What it talked about specifically with appreciation is when you appreciate someone, when you express appreciation to someone else. Some people think it's enough to say to their partner, their loved one, I love you. Whereas what almost needs to follow that is, I love you because, and then you follow it with something that has value. It's almost like gratitude must come with, which is I love you, must come with because there's something. And when you express appreciation for something, when somebody's bought you something, thank you for that present. It made me feel really wonderful. That's the two elements of it, rather than just thank you. Adding the feeling element in.
So appreciation is about noticing and acknowledging something that you may not have paid attention to before, and noticing what value it has in your life.
Yes.
And with that cognitive process, you're getting a what you call a warm feeling from it, because instead of ignoring something, so we can appreciate, you talked about nature, we can go out in nature and we can just walk, or we can go out in nature and notice how warm it is, how beautiful, notice the songs, and notice how that makes us feel. And that cognitive emotion, that cognitive process leads to the feeling, that warm feeling. And that whole thing is labeled as appreciation.
One of the aspects of appreciation that I particularly valued was the way that it can help us appreciate our way through difficult times, like the times that we have ahead. I won't go into the detail, but I've had some challenging adversities in my life. And without deflecting from the need to deal with those adversities, sometimes I needed a mental rest from it, because sometimes you're just looking at a problem or looking at an adversity, looking at the loss of a loved one, and it's hitting you smack in the face and it's hurting like crazy. And because you're in that mental state at the time, I found that I couldn't think clearly. So what I started to do was to look for other things that I could appreciate, look for other elements, start listing things in my life that I had to appreciate. And it started to make me realize that the problem that I was going through was perhaps either short-lived, not as serious as I'd originally thought it to be. Perhaps I was catastrophizing. Perhaps I was bringing, as I've said previously, it was fear. So it was false expectations appearing real. Perhaps it was all of that. And what I was able to do was apply appreciation as a verb in my life. And I found that that helped me to restore calm to my brain and to my thinking processes. Then I could revisit the problem or the challenge or whatever it was, or the adversity, with a clearer mind, not fogged by pain and hurt. And that's
a bit of mindfulness there as well, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think appreciation does help us through.
Yeah, I have a book. I've written a book which is a journal, and it's called 10 Minutes to Happiness, and it's got 6 tasks to do at the end of every night to note, just bullet points of things that happen during the day that are proven through research to be beneficial to our need for happiness and our levels of happiness. One of which is things to be grateful for. And you've really got me thinking, Steve, as to whether those things to be grateful for should really be things to appreciate, or whether it matters, whether we're just talking about semantics. But either way, there's definitely a huge research body, because that's why I included it. And I think what you're alluding to is absolutely vital. It is about, and especially even today, you're talking about times of adversity, but today in these very adverse times, very, very difficult times, it's about noticing the things that we've got, not the things we haven't got. I remember right at the beginning of lockdown, like 10 weeks ago, and as I've said in the previous podcast, how I think we were all in such shock and grieving, and everything had been taken away. It felt like everything had been taken away from us. And I remember sitting there, I keep a blog just for my own purposes, and I remember sitting there thinking, everything's gone. There's nothing left to enjoy. What is there? And I remember saying, well, come on, there are things to enjoy. Let me write them down. And I developed a new appreciation for stuff that before I barely noticed. So I remember writing down a hot bath, which I enjoy, but not normally. It would just be a chore that you get through and, you need to do, or a hot shower, whatever. But now, because there was so little else to enjoy at that time, I was enjoying it more. I was noticing it more. I was appreciating it, your appreciation. And as time went on, my list of things to enjoy and things to appreciate grew and grew, and nothing had really changed, but my attitude had changed. So I really appreciated being able to go for walks and nature, as you said, and that mindfulness. And it got to the point where the things at the beginning of the list, the hot bath, I was like, yeah, I still appreciate it, but I've got a whole list of stuff now. And these are things that were there 2 weeks ago. They're not things that have suddenly arrived. We was in the same position 10 weeks on as we were at the start, but I had a new appreciation for them. And therefore, the quality of my life went up because I was enjoying more stuff. I was noticing, I was mindful of the things that I was enjoying, the things I was grateful for, the things that were giving me pleasure, things which before I didn't have time to think about. I didn't notice. It didn't go through my consciousness. They were there. Nature was still there. The sun was still there. The trees transforming from spring to summer, which they've done over this time, were still there. But I wasn't mindful of them. I didn't appreciate them. So I'm definitely with you on this. And I think you raised a really, really crucial point that is so relevant today.
Well, interestingly, when I did I can't remember where my research sources took me now, because I started doing the research into all of that 20 plus years ago. But it's equally applicable today. But one of the things that I remember picking up on was there was some negativity around the word gratitude. Because it was like when we were children, one of the common things that our parents used to say was, you ungrateful little so-and-so, or you're not grateful enough for this. And we had more memories. Yeah, we had more memories of the negativity around gratefulness than the positivity that should have been attached to it. Whereas the word appreciation didn't seem to have any negative associations with it. You can say the word unappreciative, but it's not used very often. But appreciation as a verb, when applied in life, when we try and think of it, what I try and do every day, if I can, I face challenges, and there's parts of my work that I love and absolutely adore. I love the creativity side of it. There's parts of my job that are challenging. So what I try and do is I look for the appreciation, the bits that I can appreciate in every element. The last bit that I'd written a note on here was that it is even possible to give thanks for our challenges and our troubles, because those challenges and troubles help us to appreciate more the more joyful times. and the more pleasurable times that come afterwards. It's like when you've been deprived of seeing someone, as we all have been in this lockdown, and you get the chance to see them. I got the chance to see a friend last week that I hadn't seen for 10 weeks. And we abided by the social distancing rules. We sat 2 meters apart on a park bench and we spoke for an hour. And I tell you what, the appreciation that I came away with from that was amazing. I come away thinking, I haven't seen my friend for 10 weeks and I've missed that person. I've missed him, and we sat there and we laughed and we joked like we always did. But it was a sense of appreciation of it's almost like you've got to be deprived of something to fully appreciate something when it returns. Well, I think that brings appreciation. That's a great conversation. I've loved that one. Yeah. One of my favourite subjects.
Sunshine and rain to make the rainbow.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before we close, I'm going to go back to my 10-minute happiness journal. And when the next edition comes out, I think I'm going to change it from gratitude to appreciation. I'll have to give you a little mention, a little thanks for that.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. Okay, well, we'll bring this one to a close. We've got one more little session after this, and then hopefully we'll be able to go on with our normality as such. But I love these sessions. So I could do them all day, but there you go. Okay, so we'll meet again at the next one, and see you shortly.
Fantastic. Bye, Steve.
Bye-bye.
At Sparta Group, we are keen to hear your thoughts about the topics discussed today. So please tweet us at Sparta_health or visit our website for more information and support.